As well as protecting government and the military from hostile surveillance, GCHQ also protects all of us from things such as terrorism, cyber attacks and child sexual exploitation. To find out more, I'm going to meet one of GCHQ's big bosses giving his first ever broadcast interview. Kieran Martin is the Director General of GCHQ's newest branch, the National Cyber Security Centre. I know you can't talk in detail about them, but give us some kind of insight as to the sort of tasks that people might carry out inside this building.
Well, it could be anything from locating the phone number of someone plotting a terrorist attack in the UK from abroad. It could be working out a really clever way of stopping large-scale cyber attacks. So, for example, we find that there are people trying to pretend to be the HM Revenue and Customs. We've written a simple line of code in this building that has stopped that. And so instead of 58,000 emails a day, which were being sent from something calling itself taxrefund.gov.uk, none of those are being sent.
The controversial new Investigatory Powers Act gives UK intelligence agencies like GCHQ the most sweeping surveillance powers in the Western world. Critics say it's a step too far, breaching our right to privacy. One thing that people will want to know more than anything else is, are you able to hack into my emails, hack into my phone, look at my internet browsing history?
GCHQ does not look at everyone's emails. What we have the power to do is, when there is a known threat, we can use our bulk data to focus in on that threat, and that needs authorization from a senior minister and from a judge, and all of that is set out really clearly in parliamentary legislation.
So are you a law unto yourselves with this new law?
We absolutely not. We are governed by one of the longest, most transparent and strictest pieces of legislation governing this sort of activity anywhere in the world. We are subject to the rule of law. Nobody here is above the law.
But classified information leaked by American whistleblower Edward Snowden led to claims that GCHQ has already acted illegally by collecting massive amounts of data about millions of people's online activity. So has anything changed?
The courts have found in all cases, and we've had a number of legal challenges over the last few years, that all of our activity is lawful and that none of our historic activity was unlawful. What they said in 2 cases was that successive governments hadn't said enough about the way in which we operated. And
failed to comply with European Court of Human Rights principles.
What they've said is that we didn't say enough about the way the system operated. That is all they said. And we've already fixed that through the publication of codes of conduct. There's all sorts of other material freely available in the public domain about what we do and why we do it.
So what's it like to have the safety of the nation on your shoulders? I'm meeting a woman who manages a group of analysts responsible for foiling terror plots. We can't show her face for national security reasons. We're calling her Beth. How personally stressful is it when you know you're facing a threat which could put lives at risk?
We really do kind of understand that our jobs are on the front line, but there's no escaping the fact that it has real consequences.
How do you ever know whether you're winning? How do you ever know whether you're making a difference?
It can feel relentless and huge, but also you have those moments when an operation goes well, when some hideous act is averted or some really worrying cyber attack is defended against, and that's how we know. Winning feels like a big word, but we know that we're making a difference.
Well, international security expert and the University of Warwick's Professor Richard Aldrich is here to help explain more about GCHQ's capabilities. Now, he frequently advises governments on security issues. Welcome, Richard. Lovely to see you. You've written a lot about the history of GCHQ, and you know more than most what goes on inside there. Can you shed a bit more light on how they gather and analyse this data, then?
So GCHQ gathers intelligence by listening in to telephone calls, reading emails. It also gets a lot of its intelligence from looking at who called who when, who accessed the internet when, and it can also hack into people's computers. So it can actually go into the back of your computer down a wire and change things inside your computer. So it's doing all these things, and no less important, it's also trying to prevent our adversaries from doing the same things to us.
Right. And I'm sure the techniques are very similar, but this new law then, so what's happening now? What can GCHQ do now that they couldn't do a month ago?
So the new law is quite important, and I take issue with Kieran Martin in the film. For about 17 years, GCHQ was in breach of Article 8. So it wasn't saying enough about what it was doing. And that meant if you or I had an issue with intelligence collection, we felt something had been done to us, it was quite difficult for us to seek redress. So that was quite
Is the point that it's not kind of a secret service?
Exactly. So now GCHQ is still secret, but it's telling us enough about what it's doing to comply with European legislation. The bill is also quite tough on metadata, so it's quite easy for the authorities to get at that description of our communications. There are about 500,000 requests for that data a year, so that's quite big surveillance. And it's quite tough on encryption. We're allowed encryption on our phones, but GCHQ has to be allowed a backdoor. All those things are quite tough. The improvement is that judges now have to sign off on warrants.
Yeah.
That's quite reassuring.
As opposed to just the Home Secretary or a Cabinet Minister say that one had been extremely rude about, was then entitled to sign a warrant to have a look at the back of my computer, which I was, you'll be unsurprised to hear, very against.
Yes.
I can imagine. But the thing is, with this new law then, Ian, I mean, how does that affect you in all seriousness? How does that affect your ability to do your job the way you could do it?
Well, I think it makes journalism and investigative journalism harder, because I don't think there are sufficient safeguards for journalistic sources. I also have issues about, you know, the fact that they've now put into law what they were exposed as being doing anyway for the last 17 years.
Yeah.
So they're just saying, we're still doing it, but it's legal now. And every step of the way, that had to be fought to get a judge to say you can target it, rather than just, we'll look at everything. And it is a change for people in this country. I know we've been busy with Brexit and not noticed, but essentially they're saying, the fact that you've done nothing wrong at all doesn't matter. We're looking at everything from everyone. And that's very different from saying we're looking at you or you.
Yes.
But I mean, this is a whole world that we're talking about here, Richard. And as far as the kind of the privacy versus the security, because at the end of the day, everybody wants to stay safe. Do you feel that we've got the right line at this point in time?
I think the worrying thing about the line where we are now is it's being determined largely by technology, not by debate in Parliament. So essentially the line between liberty and security will probably be determined by a 19-year-old maths undergraduate who discovered some widget. That's how things are going to be determined, because actually the debate in Parliament, most MPs don't really understand this stuff.
Right, OK, well, we'll have to leave it there, Richard. Thank you very much indeed. And actually, GCHQ, Ian, have given you a Christmas present.
That's nice, isn't it?
It's this. This, Ian, is their new puzzle book, look. Pit your wits against the people who cracked Enigma. And it's all been sold for their mental health charity, Heads Together.
All you do, right, you lift this, and if it starts buzzing, don't worry about it. Just pop it in your office, OK?
Yeah. Make
Pop
sure
it
you
on
stay
your
in the
desk.
office. There you go. That's on sale now.
Hello, Mrs. Day.
Very good.
Straight through.